Welcome to Resource for Care's Aging in Memphis podcast. Today we're going to be talking about living your best life. What does that look like? I'm sure it's different for each of us. And our guest today is Lynn Doyle of Unity Psychiatric Care. Lynn has her Master's of Science in Counseling.
I do.
But your interactions with folks on a daily basis probably give you a unique perspective on this.
Well, yes, and looking at my own life and your life and everybody's life, just even friends, it makes a difference. I'll tell you, as I've gotten older, some things have become, I've been enlightened, let me say that. Some things have come to light for me that say it is my responsibility to live the best life I can. Now, I think where we get sideways with this is as we get older, and I'm putting myself in that category,
right,
for sure, we sometimes depend on the world to make our life better. You know, we depend on our doctors, of course, as we should. We depend on our friends, our spouse, our children, whoever. We want everybody to help us make our life better. And while we need all those people, it is ultimately our responsibility.
We can't really delegate that responsibility to other people.
You
ultimately are in charge, right?
Right, and it's a responsibility that sometimes we don't want to take. I mean, we would like somebody to be in charge.
Right.
We'd like for it to be us, but I think as we begin to age, which we're all doing, there are certain points in our life that we have to be reflective. And we have to say, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And the best I can do to make my life as full as it can be. What's my responsibility? How can I get there? And
I think it starts with kind of deciding what does that look like for you. I mean, I don't know if that's where it starts, but I think that's a big part of it.
It does, and I think as we talk about, and it's something that we, as a matter of fact, just talked about, you and I. And is that sometimes what we do is we hold on to the past, and we hold on to it so tightly. We wish we could get back there. I mean, and we talked about some song lyrics, that songs that most folks know out there that would make a difference in our life.
I just think your idea of relating, I mean, songs we all know mirror life. You know, they are there just like phrases. You wonder why there's phrases for things, but songs are created from emotion, from experiences. So I think you're spot on in using that as a reference, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, there's a couple. We're going to start real light, and then maybe get real deep. But everybody knows Glory Days. I had a friend was a big basketball player back in high school. He could throw that speedball. And on, and he says, song the other night at this roadside bar. I was walking in, he was walking out. So we went back inside, and he goes on to say, we began to talk about those days, the glory days. And a lot of times we forget that it wasn't all glory back in those days. We might think that it was all glory.
We certainly didn't have the modern conveniences we have today, for example.
We didn't, but I think it's just a part of what we do. We always look back, and sometimes very fondly, on things that were great memories. But along with that, just think about high school. Let's go back there for a minute. I mean, whatever. There were some really good things, but then there were the classes that we were struggling with.
Yes.
They were the people who bullied. There were teachers who were unreasonable. There were our parents who could be unreasonable about their expectations for we. I mean, weren't we supposed to be having fun?
Right. I thought that's what it was all about.
So when we look at songs like that, and he goes on to say, and we'll read the chorus, glory days, yeah, they'll pass you by, glory days, in the wink of a young girl's eye, glory days, glory days. And what he's saying is, as he and his friend begin to talk about this, he thinks, you know what, life was good, but it's brief. And I think as we grow older, looking back with fondness is wonderful. I'm meeting with some high school friends tomorrow. It'll be a great time. But we're over that. And we're now on to things that are just as important in our lives, because there is no, glory days can either be forever or never.
Right.
And so we have to then begin to go on and say, gotta live my life a little bit better. Gotta live it a little bit stronger, coming from right now.
Sure.
And even though the past might have looked great, there were some bumps there, and guess what? You never get over bumps. Your journey is...
Well, that's very true. I mean, I do life coaching, and one of my clients is in her 70s, and she's like, I'm 70-something years old. Why can't I get past this? I said, it's, you know, it's a part of you.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you're going to get over. However, you can learn to recognize when it's kind of taken over and see the signs and make other choices. But like you said, it's always going to be there. It's a memory, or it's imprinted on your brain.
But that's very wise, but a lot of wisdom there with saying, understand your triggers, and understand that there are going to be times in your life when you think, I should be done with this.
Right.
We do that with grief.
Sure.
I should be done with that.
It sneaks up on you, right?
But yet we know, depending upon how much energy, it's all about the energy. Whatever we give energy to is who we are.
So true. That's so true.
So that was one.
It's also hard to enjoy what's happening in the present moment if you're not present. So if your mind and your emotions and things are tied up with past events, it's hard to be there and be present.
And I think that's great advice. And I think as we get older, that becomes even more important, that we are in the moment, that we know that whatever has happened, and it may have scarred us.
Sure.
And we may die with those scars.
Yeah.
But how we choose to live our life and to move on. And certainly it's different for everybody. Many people need a counselor, many folks need a therapist. No shame in that.
No.
You know. But then and looking on,
So it's going to get heavier from this point on?
Yeah, it'll be a little bit light.
Okay, all right.
But I hope you dance. Because no matter how old you are, this is actually somebody talking to somebody younger, but you can tell this to yourself. I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. And then it says, I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. But I'm going to skip to this. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the chance to sit it out or dance. And you know, if you think about it, that's so much us.
Yes.
We have opportunity to do things. And we let a lot of things pass us by when we were younger, because we just weren't as smart. And when we were really younger, our temporal lobe wasn't formed, so I'm blaming everything on that. But as we get older and wiser, we realize that there's still some dance in us. And maybe it's not physical dance, but maybe it's looking challenges head on and saying, okay, I know the things I can't do.
Yes.
What are the things I can do?
Right. We were laughing a little bit before we got on the podcast today, because I had described a recent trip, and I pushed my husband a little bit outside his comfort zone. He's a little older than I am, and we stayed in a tree house for 2 nights.
Oh my
and he's
gosh.
And he's on he uses a CPAP, and so he's thinking,
this won't work.
This isn't gonna, he's thinking all the worst, but it all worked out. I knew it would.
Was it a great experience?
It was wonderful.
And did he love it
too? He loved it. I mean, he was out in Idaho for 10 years, living on a farm and a cowboy, and so this is right up his alley. I mean, he enjoyed it, but it's just making that choice to dance, making that choice to get out of your comfort zone and pick something that's a little outside, a little bit more scary, I guess you would say.
And the great part of that, it opens the door to do more of those things.
Yes.
It's like anytime, great way to put that, anytime we get out of our comfort zone, which is always a little scary.
Of course.
But when we do it once,
Yes.
then we're open to continue
Right.
to do it.
Yes.
And we're looking for our next adventure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what life is.
Sure.
It is an adventure. And even the ones of us, and yourself included, who've been through grief and loss
Absolutely.
and pain, and all those things are a part of it. And we didn't feel like dancing at that point. And we didn't feel so lucky at that point. We didn't feel so blessed
Right.
at that point. But the deal is, once we walked through it, even a grief, we got stronger
Right.
internally. And that treehouse opens the door to, holy mackerel, so many different things.
Right.
But you had to do it.
Yes. It was there, we had to do it.
And think about this. What if you hadn't?
Right. I would be feeling a loss, to be honest. I mean, you know, Pete Nelson in the Treehouse, he's the Treehouse man, and I watch him on TV. He's a great personality, and I just fell in love with the whole thing. And to be in Washington State and not do it, I think, you know, who wants a life filled with regret, right? So
Totally.
got to take a risk and
Well,
stay in a treehouse.
Stay in a treehouse. Also, life is so incredibly uncertain, and working with seniors with mental
Yes.
health issues, I can tell you that not a single one of those people plan to be hospitalized
Sure.
with depression, anxiety,
Right.
dementia.
Right.
We
Or
think-
have a fall and be physically incapable of doing things
Yes.
that their soul or their mind or their body wants to do.
So since we don't know,
Right. It can
We
happen.
have to
and
live
you and I
life.
know it can happen. It's the unexpected.
it's
It
the
happens.
unexpected. And while we wish we could just wish that away, we can't.
No.
I talked to a radiologist yesterday, and we were talking about she's in mammography, and we were talking about how so many women don't get mammograms because they think, I don't want to.
Right. I
I
don't want
don't
to
wanna know that.
I don't want to know.
And I think it's important at this point that we do know that things happen whether we want them to or not.
Right.
So as much as you can be prepped for it,
Yes.
that's a part of your journey, and you have to do that.
I agree.
I wanted to do this one because I think it's one that pretty much everybody knows. It's a Tim McGraw song. Live Like You Were Dying.
Wow.
And I love this.
That's a
because
dramatic title.
it is, but the great thing about it is, if you think about it, because just as you said earlier, none of us are promised any days, any more than just this minute.
Right.
I'm loving that we're doing this
Yes.
in this minute.
I agree.
But if you live like you are dying, it just means you're gonna suck every bit of life that you possibly. There are two
Yes.
things you can do. You can just go ahead and die.
Right.
And a lot of folks choose to do that. I'm living like I'm dying because I am just going to go to my corner and
Right.
die. And there are
Just
people who
waiting
are,
for my time. Yeah.
and there are people who are just dying emotionally. Maybe not physically, but dying emotionally.
Right.
But in this particular event, listen to this. This is great. He was in his early 40s with a lot of life before me when a moment came that stopped me on a dime. I spent most of the next days looking at the x-rays, talking about the opinions, and talking about sweet time. And then it talks about, as it sank in,
Right.
that, oh my gosh, I'm too young to die.
Yes.
I've got so much living to do. He started doing things, and the chorus is what's so important. He said, I went skydiving.
Wow.
I went Rocky Mountain climbing. I spent 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. I love that. I love.
I don't think I'll get Mr. Novak to
Yeah.
do that. That's out of the question.
Out of the
but-
question. I loved deeper, spoke sweeter, gave forgiveness, and said, and I say to you, I hope someday you'll understand what it's like to live like you were dying. And it goes on. But basically what he's saying is, if we know that life can be short,
Yes.
what are we waiting for? Now, I'm not getting on a bull. I'm not doing that.
Because it might infirm you. You might have issues afterwards.
Yeah. Just like I was telling you the other day when my grandchild said, "Can you do a cartwheel?" I said, "I can, but I won't."
I could try, but
it's not going to be pretty, and I may have broken bones following you. There are limits.
Yes.
I'm not saying skydive and do all those things, although if you want to and you can, that's great.
Yes.
But you can go to a treehouse if you're still physically fit.
Last year was a yurt in Alaska. That was...
Yes. And even anything like that that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and I think about this, and I'll read some of these lyrics later, but I think about Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. And I think sometimes we have to take a good look at ourselves and say, again, there are a lot of things I can't do anymore, but there's some things I can do. Nothing would prohibit me from making a phone call to an old friend and just saying, "How are you?"
Right.
Nothing would keep me right now for me, baking something and taking it to someone who needs it. And I'll tell you what I do, which is totally the wrong thing. So don't do this. But a lot of times I will say to somebody, "What can I do for you?" Don't say, "What can I do for you?" Just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. People appreciate that you thought of them. Even if it's, and I tell people this as the holidays approach, and many of us struggle with, how much money do I spend? Do I need to spend any money at all? What can I do? But just a handwritten note to someone, just a text, just a candy cane, just in anything small that says, I'm concerned about you. I love you. Thanks for being in my life. Those are important gifts. And if you think, for many of you who have grandchildren and you're thinking about, or maybe even young children, you're thinking about the toys and how expensive everything is, especially electronics, and what can I do? Your children, your grandchildren may not understand it right now. But the truth is, if you write them something that tells them how proud you are of them, how much you wish for them the very best life because they're so deserving, because they're so loved, the warmth in that something that you've written will carry them for years, and will be something that they will look back at and love. Yeah, and I'm sure we all can look back and think of that teacher or even a parent or an uncle, a grandparent, or something who gave us some encouragement that may not have seemed like a big deal, but that we still look back and we have fond memories of that. So why not be the one? I mean, why wait? What are you waiting for? My mom was she didn't have any money, but she loved her grandchildren, and so the little money she had, she would give to them. But I remember when the report cards came out, she would always give them $1 if they did well on their report card, and a note would be with it, because I still have some of them, and it would just be like, "I'm so proud of you." Now we know that $1 won't even hardly get a candy bar right now. But when my mom did that, she did that to say, "I'm giving you what I've got, and telling you what I know to be true." And what a gift that is. So
I used to go to camp. I used to earn my way to go to camp, and I had this aunt who never had children, and so it was a special relationship. And she used to write me these notes while I was at camp. And I saved every single one. But there was I won't go into detail, but there was a show that we watched, and she would write at the bottom of each note the initials of the phrase of the show.
How fun.
That was special to two of us. So, it was "Please don't eat the daisies," I'll just say.
Oh, I love "Please don't eat the daisies."
She would just give all the initials for that. And it was just, I kept every single note.
It's still a special.
It is.
And when you go back to it, it grows you up a little bit.
Absolutely. Makes you humble a little bit too.
Yeah. But I love that.
Yeah. What else do you have for us?
I love this. This is Michael Jackson. I'm going to make a change for once in my life. It's going to feel real good. It's going to make a difference. I'm going to make it right. As I turn the collar of my favorite winter coat, the wind's blowing in my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? I think, again, we become so self-absorbed. Gosh, I do it.
Well,
you know,
we all
I
do.
talked to you the other day. I just had cataract surgery. Woo, it's a success. And I've got this ear that I'm going to the doctor once again this afternoon to see about. And I broke a tooth.
Oh my goodness.
And breaking a tooth, that ain't no big deal. People break teeth. You go to the dentist, he's got a temporary, he's fixing everything. But if I focus on all that,
or you lump them together and
then
give
I'm
it
unwell.
meaning, right?
Yeah, then I'm unwell.
Right.
Even though I'm working every day, and then I shouldn't be working every day. I'm working unwell. It's ridiculous what our mind does. And like you said, it pairs things together and causes us to try.
Yeah, really, it clouds your vision and puts on a pair of glasses that warps, the reality. If they're isolated, we were just talking about some things happening in the world. But, if you focus on that, focus on it, then it really can become, what your mindset is.
It does. And I think we have to be like the Michael Jackson song, Man in the Mirror. We have to look around and know that in our situations, there are millions of people who don't begin to have the things that we have.
Very true.
Even though we've got bills, even though we think, I've worked hard my whole life, and I probably don't have enough saved, and what does that mean? But the deal is, we have so much more than so many people do.
Right.
And that's not just physical, you can touch it stuff.
Right.
That's emotional.
Sure.
The friends that we have,
Yes.
the people we can call on, the neighbors, the people who live next door. I think I've told this story before, but my husband, who never in all our years of marriage, all our 30 years
Now
of
be
marriage.
careful, he might hear this.
That's okay. I didn't tell him I was doing it. He's not turning it. Don't even back tell him. But he never, wanted to really. I mean, he's a very friendly guy, so he would speak over the fence and he would say, "How are you doing?" And if somebody needed something, he would. But for the most part, being really doing things sort of off the cuff, he never did. We moved into this little gated community. And he's walking the dog. All of a sudden, he knows everyone. And we making Christmas cookies for everyone. The very first year we're there, we've been there 6 months. People don't know us that well, except we're the cookie people. We hang cookies on their door. But the deal is, I've seen him change because of how he feels about that neighborhood.
Sure.
And it really, to tell you the truth, it wasn't that big of a deal to make those cookies.
Right.
You do a little slice and bake, throw on some.
Yes.
Yeah, you're good. Make those little peanut butter blossoms. Life's good. It's not that difficult. But I saw a change in him, and it made me want to know the neighbors better. It's those small changes that make a difference in who you are, and make a difference in when somebody says, "Thank you so much for remembering me." It makes a difference. So we'll get a little deeper here, and you and I talked about this song, but a lot of times when we have grown older, we begin to think, and I know I do this. I think, oh, that is my mother coming out of my mouth. I can hear her say phrases that really don't make any sense. You know how your parents would say, "Don't get smart with me." Really? You don't want me to be smart, and things like that. But I love.
Don't listen, Mom. But Mom used to say.
No.
Mom used to say, "You're the oldest. You should know better."
Oh,
meaning that I was
the
responsible for everything that happened in the house with the kids.
And out in the world even.
Right. You should know better.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should know better. You should do better. And then I love that old, which this is going to really date me, but that finish the food on your plate. They're poor kids who don't have this
Starving
food.
somewhere.
So what? You want to mail them this food? I mean, this food is bad food. I don't want to eat this food. They don't want to eat it either. By the time it gets to them, it'll be spoiled. It didn't make sense.
Right.
But it made sense to her. But we become very much like our parents.
Sure.
And there are things that we want to become like them.
Well, I talk. We have about 5 minutes just to let you know. But I talk with my clients about our comfort zone. And our comfort zone is really not always comfortable. I mean, we may not like our parents telling us these things, but then we hear them coming out of our mouth. But the reason is that a comfort zone, to me, is what we know and what's familiar. It's not necessarily comfortable. So we end up repeating either behavior or words because it's what we know.
It's familiar.
Yes.
It's familiar. It's like an old pair of shoes. So we keep in those. We'll have to come back and talk about that because that's huge.
Yes.
But Cat Stevens, Cats in the Cradle, love it. But he's talking about his son being born.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go a lot into this, but he's talking about his son being born, and he's talking about how his son continuously says, I'm going to be like you, Dad.
Right.
You know, I want to be like you. And then the whole thing is, this man's traveling and he's away and he can't come home, and he says to his parents who want him to come home, he says, can't do it, kids are sick, whatever. And the child's hearing all this. So as he grows up, what happens is he's distant from his dad. And when his dad says, I'd love to see you, like the dad's parents said to him, he repeats, wish I could be there. You know, but the kids are sick and I've got obligations at work. Now, here's the thing. This is why this is such an important song, I think, for us and for us to begin to close with. Living without regret is one of the biggest things that you can do. A lot of folks out there who are listening to this may be saying, I already have so many regrets. Okay, you can't do anything about that. You may go back and apologize, but other than that, but what can you do to move forward, knowing what you know now, because you're wiser now than you ever were. Your brain power is stronger than it ever was. What can you do to live your best life, to live your life without regret?
So I think it's all about taking advantage of the choices that we might have and trying to step out of our comfort zone to feel, to live life to its fullest.
Absolutely.
And as we started, like living your best life, the best you know how. So I want to thank you. This is a wonderful topic. I also think maybe it's one that should be at our conference. Since we're celebrating seniors.
What a great idea.
I don't know what that looks like, but
we're on too many committees, you do know that. That hurts our best life sometimes. Okay, sure.
So, Resource for Care is a channel of YouTube, on YouTube. You can go to my website, resource4care.com, and get links directly to the YouTube channel. And we also have the Aging in Memphis podcast. So, you can be listening while you're driving and not run off the road. And so I hope you'll visit it and see all the other topics that we have.
Yes, and I think my phone number's on there. If anybody just wants to chat, give me a call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks. It was great.